Hi, welcome back to my channel. It has been a solid minute since I've recorded something because I am terrible at being consistent. I have to say, this has been one of the most successful reading months I think I've ever had. I read 14 books this month. How that happens, considering it's September and it's the first month of school, how I read more books in 1 month of school than I have in 1 month of being on vacation, I have no idea why that is. And yet it happens. Clearly, I work good under pressure. So to start, the very first book I read this month was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. If you didn't know, I made a reading blog on it. For more explicit details, go check that out. Anyway, I rated this book 4.75 out of 5 stars. Incredible start. As a debut fantasy series, it's amazing. If you didn't know, basically The Poppy War is about an orphan by the name of Rin, and Rin starts off with humble beginnings, and she's set in this perilous position, and to get out of that, she wants to enroll in a very prestigious academy in order to train scholars to become soldiers for the future. Now, she gets to that stage through hard work and determination. That's just basically her whole personality, being the outcast type of character, but it's very much about her character arc and her development, which is so amazing. Among this, there's a war brewing underneath all these things, and it's basically the whole atmosphere of the story is war, battle, gruesome, hardships, you name it. Other things I really liked, other than Rin's character, was definitely the dialogue and the banter between her and other characters. I felt like the side characters were done really well, especially the arc of Atlan. I really liked it, and how his and Rin's definitely intertwined and paralleled with each other. That was really fascinating. The ending sacrifice to this book, though, that was hard to read. I was so upset. I was like, no, why? But it happened. I really enjoyed it. One thing I do have to mention why I didn't give it a full 5 is basically because it felt a little info dumpy at times, because there's a lot of history and culture to be revealed about the Poppy Wars from its past, and just in general about the world building itself. Quite info dumpy and long chapters, but overall I thought it was done well. Overall, I highly recommend this book. It is such a great start for anyone looking for a debut fantasy. And also, please check out the trigger warnings. There is a lot of things that go down in this book that are definitely triggering. You need to look at them because it's a lot. But I really recommend this book. Okay, the next set of books I read this month were The Inheritance Games Trilogy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Again, I posted a reading blog on this for more extensive detail. Go check that out. But first and foremost, I gave the first book 5. The second book I gave 3.5, I believe. And then the last one I gave 4.25. Now, overall, if you didn't hear about the Hawthorne trilogy, basically it's about a girl by the name of Avery Grams. And one day, she just found out that she inherited billions of dollars from a random old man named Tobias Hawthorne, who she has never met before, has no connection to the guy, and yet his family receives like 5% of his will and his income, which makes no sense. And so the whole idea behind the story is that no one believes Avery. They feel like she's a con woman. And so it's very mysterious. And there's this whole game they're trying to get at about how or why Avery specifically was chosen to inherit the will. And just a lot of mystery and intrigue in the plot. What I really like is it embodies a very dark academia mystery. They say it's thriller, but I don't really see the thriller in this. But like mystery, dark academia for sure. There's also a love triangle. Jameson and Grayson Hawthorne. Yes, there's the Hawthorne brothers. I like the characters. They added so much depth and just a lot of personality to the story, which I really enjoyed. This book was easily a 5. It just felt so easy to read. The chapters are actually relatively short, which I really liked. And you just fly through it because of it. It's so interesting. And it's like less than 400 pages, like 350 or something, which is really good. And then the last 2 books, if you want to know more about it, go check out my reading blog, because there's a lot of info on this. Because I suck at determining the outcome of love triangles, I decided to read a book with a love triangle in it that I know would be the outcome I wanted it to be. So I picked up Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. Not just this book, I picked up the entire series too, because I have no self-control. So let's start off with the first book. If you didn't know, Shatter Me essentially is a dystopian urban fantasy story featuring our main character, Juliette Ferrars. Now, Juliette has this very interesting ability where whoever she touches or whoever like makes contact with her dies or is severely injured. Like her touch is lethal. That's like her whole personality basically. And they're set in this world where the whole economy and like system of the world has collapsed, and so there's this government leading body called the Reestablishment. You know, it's very much like a rebel versus like government type of dystopian world setup here. But we get the introduction to some of our very profound characters, including Kenji, Juliet, Adam, and Warner. When Warner showed up, I was like, okay, the hype around him makes sense, but overall thoughts about this book and the rest of the series, I think it is slightly overhyped, because the only thing I found to be like amazing was probably the romance, just because it was so unique and just so different from what you usually read in YA fantasy romance, whatever it is. Other things though is that it felt very tropey at times. I felt like the dystopian setting and the atmosphere wasn't described much or even given much depth, just because like they just said it was dystopian but never really told us why. If you're a more critical reader, you probably will not like this series just because there's nothing profound about it at all. It's just more of a fun, entertaining read with a good romance, to be quite honest. So anyway, that was the first book. I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then, I'm not going to say anything for the rest of the book other than the ratings. Unravel Me is book 2. I gave it 4.5. This one was good. And then the fan favorite, we have Ignite Me. Full 5s, 5 out of 5 stars. This was so good. I love that one. Then we continue on with book 4, Restore Me. I did not like this that much. I think I gave it like 3.5 again. And then we have Defy Me, book 5. Book 5. I gave it 4 stars or 4.5. I don't remember, but this one is pretty good. And then the last book, actually no, it's not the last book. Imagine Me, book 6. I gave this one, I think, 4 or 3.5. As a conclusion, I just didn't like it that much. And then the other two I forgot to mention. I read Believe Me, which is like the last novella. That one, I was a little disappointed, but you know what? It's an interesting conclusion to the series. I think I gave it like 4 out of 5 stars. And then the other one, which is the novella right after Shatter Me, the first book, called Destroy Me, featuring Warner's perspective, which is really interesting considering we see, you know, his point of view and his way of thinking after the events of the first book. And I gave that, I think, like 4.5, just because I like seeing from his perspective. Okay, after that, the next book I read was one of my most anticipated releases for the year. Incredible, I loved it. I don't regret buying 2 editions of this book, but I had to. And that was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I had to get it. If you didn't know, it's essentially book 2 of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, Stephanie Garber's continuation of the Caraval universe. It's amazing. If you're into YA fantasy, romance particular, with like very fairy tale-esque vibes and just magical, pretty, fluffy, lighthearted writing. I think it's first person as well. If you like that kind of stuff, you would love this. But this is the Barnes & Noble / Indigo exclusive edition. This is the Waterstones exclusive signed edition. It's so... I had to treat myself, okay? I never got an exclusive signed edition before. And, like, let me show you why it's so coveted. Like, come on. That is beautiful. Thoughts about this book in general. I gave it about... What did I give it? I think it was like 4.5 out of 5 stars. Really, really good. I felt personally that it just gave the same energy and vibe as I felt reading the first book. I wouldn't say it felt better or worse, it just felt the same. Now here's why. I felt like there was a lot of revelations. Some of them were a little confusing because when they overlap with previous things that were revealed from the first book, I was just like, how does this line up exactly? Why does this line up? But overall in the end, it started to click more just because everything was coming together, which is good. Other things, I loved how Jax and Eva's relationship really pulled, I wouldn't say pulled through, but like grew over the course of the story. We see more of Jax's whole upbringing, sort of, but not the full extent of it. But the ending, that ending to the book, oh my gosh, I did not expect to see that coming. I love that. That is so twisty, it's so different, unique in every way. Okay, and the last book I read this month was a disappointment beyond belief, and it was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. Why I picked this up, I really just saw some quotes on bookstagram that were just seemed like really cute, and you know, like when people post the Pinteresty photos of like the aesthetic of the story, you just naturally are drawn to it. So I picked it up for that reason. Extremely overhyped. I think it is not that good of a book. Her writing was fine. That wasn't really the issue. My issue was that I did not like the ending. I was not particularly gravitated towards the relationship in general, and I feel like because it's very much a romantic like book, you have to be like drawn to the relationship in order to like the story. And if you don't like the relationship, you won't like the story. It's just a given. The whole like alpha male possessive like trope, you know, I'm not against it per se, but just the way they went about it in this book was just not it. I just didn't feel it. Walking red flags for Alex. I don't understand the hype around him. His decisions in the end of the book just threw me off completely, and I was like, this does not deserve anywhere close to 4 stars at all, or even 5. So I was like, there's no way. Other things, the only thing I really did like about this book was probably Ava's character, just because I felt like she had depth to her personality and her whole backstory, and she can cook. We love a girl who can cook and bake. She's an excellent baker as well. I don't hate the book. I thought like some parts of it were cute, but like the ending was just like, no. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not against reading the other books in the series because I know it's pretty popular, but like, I just don't want to read it. It just doesn't set a good impression for me for Anna Huang. If someone wants to send me the book, that'd be nice. So that pretty much concludes my September wrap up. Let me know what books you read this month, or how many books, or what you're looking forward to reading, whatever it may be. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll post another video within the next week. Peace.